Hello and welcome to the True Man podcast, the podcast designed to create a generation of self defined men. Today, I'm joined by Ryan Harland. Ryan, it's an absolute pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad, Lewis, and thank you for having me, mate. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Ryan, as always, we'll start in your own words. What makes you a man?
Ooh. Um, I'd say what I've been through and what I've dealt with in life, I'd say that the way I've come out of it, that's made me a real man. Not this emotional uh blockhead or whatever you want to call some men some days. I show my emotional side, all good and bad, and I'm 100% happy with that and comfortable in doing that in front of anyone, to be honest. To me, I feel like that makes a real man a true man.
Yeah, awesome. So, Ryan, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about what it is that you're doing in the sort of mental health space?
Um, I go around sharing my story of trauma, sexual abuse, grief, being diagnosed with mental illness, and basically I share that to help and inspire other people to know that what you go through and what you're diagnosed with, etc., doesn't define who you are as a person. You wake up every morning and define what type of person you're going to be that day. Just because you've got limitations doesn't mean you can't chase your dreams or goals or aspirations in life. Nothing should be able to stop you, like it's not stopping me at the moment.
Why do you think sexual violence against men and boys is such a taboo subject?
Um, I guess it goes back for generations, to be honest, because men always seem to be the abusers and the perpetrators all the time, and it's kind of the stigma of anyone being sexually abused as a male kind of gets swept under the carpet. It's unheard of, but I know it happened. It's happened so many times since doing this journey. I've spoken to so many survivors, male survivors, and they all said the same. It's just the stigma surrounded it. It just makes it harder for other people to open up and talk about what they went through because they're scared of being shunned from society, not believed, and things like that. Because you're a man, you're supposed to be this big muscular man who can defend anything like that happen to you, but it happens.
Do you do you think the stigma is around the shame side, or do you think it's more to do with that fact that it is the majority of sexual violent crimes are committed by men? Which one do you think it is more?
Um, I'd say it's the shame and the stigma surrounding it of any male survivors or anyone as a male speaking up about what they went through. Society seems to shun them, and that needs to change. That's why I'm doing this, to be honest, because it needs to be accepted for both genders or whatever gender you are. You're all a victim, stroke survivor. You should be treated the same, not just because you're female, male, or whatever.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about your story, why you decided to open up, and how you decided to open up?
Yeah, my childhood wasn't the greatest. I'm the youngest of two boys. My brother Kevin was 4 years older than me. Dynamics at home was awful, to be honest. Our mum was and still is my best friend. She's my protector and my everything. But on the flip side of that, the male side, it's hard to say this when it comes to him. I'm a father myself of two girls, but I called him sperm donor in my book and in my talks net because that's all he ever was. He was a manipulative paedophile, sexual abuser, peeping tom, you name it. That was him. He used to physically beat my mum up in front of me and my brother growing up. So the dynamic indoors was always hard because we was brought up to do whatever he wanted to stop the abuse and things like that. So from a young age, it was learned behaviour in that way, and that led on for years until I was 11 when my mum left him, and I struggled when I left because I thought it was the same in every other household. Because when other people used to come around our house, it was a different type of person. So I just assumed when I was going around my friends' houses that it was all nice and nice, but as soon as I left, the dad would kick the crap out of the mum or whatever, or beat the kids up, shout, scream. So when my mum left him, I started to learn that that's not what every household was like. But I still went to stay at his house every other weekend. So for two reasons: one, because he stayed in the marital home, so my friends that were over there, and two, so my mum didn't get any crap from him. So, it kept him happy, but I never understood why my brother didn't want to go. And then years later, I was about 16, 17. He already moved to his own flat by then. I went round to see him for the last time, and he took advantage of my vulnerable state when I was around him and sexually abused me. And that was hard, mentally, physically, emotionally. It mucked me up for years because I remember leaving his flat and thinking, well, I can't tell anyone because who's going to believe me? Who's going to believe that someone's father would do that to their own children? So I kept quiet for years. Went off to got engaged, and that years later, and that's when I told my first wife to be what happened. And then I told my mum. That was the second person I told. Then I had to ring my brother, who was living in London at the time because he moved up there when he was 18. I was 26 at this point, sorry. And that's when I found out that my brother was abused by the same person, or monster you could call him, between the ages of 5 and 15. And that makes sense because I was 11 when mum left him. Kev was 4 years older. So that's when his abuse stopped. That's now I know why he didn't want to go and see him at weekends. And when I told my brother, he said to me, I let it happen to me so it didn't happen to you. And it broke me. Them words still break me, to be honest, because I felt like I let him down. He went through all that crap for 10 years and he still got me. And yeah, that was hard to find out that he got both of us, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How did you feel the first time you said it to your partner at the time?
I was so scared because I didn't know what the reaction was going to be, but relieved afterwards. That it was something that was haunting me for a long time, for nearly 10 years myself. So the relief to actually speak them words was made a massive difference. And the thought, the realization of being heard and believed kind of put all them ghosts to bed in a way, because I thought, all them years of me holding back and not saying anything, if only I'd done this sooner. But obviously I didn't.
Yeah. And what about when you told your mum, right? Because there must have been some additional sort of thoughts on that. Was there the idea of maybe you'd let her down? Was there that side of things as well? What were your thoughts when you told your mum?
I think it was the same as well, because even though she hated him because all the things he'd done to her and that, part of me thought that she wouldn't believe me. I don't know why, but when I told her, it was the other way around. She thought she let me down. She thought she didn't see these things happening, and especially to Kev as well. And neither me and my brother ever blame mum, to be honest, because these individuals are so manipulative and opportunists that they manipulate any situations to their favour to get what they want. And my mum used to go and stay at her mum's one night a week. So I assume that that's when things happened to my brother for them years.
Yeah. And what made you decide to write it down? Like, how come you wrote the book?
Oh, this was a good 12, 13 years after I actually spoke up to my first wife, my mum and brother. Um, when I told my brother originally, he didn't want anything done about it because he moved to London, dealt with his own way. He come out as gay, but didn't realise at the time that he was drinking drugs. That was his way of dealing with it, and he just didn't want to go through the police or anything like that. So I reluctantly agreed because I felt like I had to, because he put his body in the line for 10 years to protect me. So years went on. I went and got married, had our first child, And then there was an incident in 2007 up in Manchester. My brother gone up there. He said he was going to meet a friend, but really he was cheating on his boyfriend to go and meet another sexual partner, and he got date raped up there by three men. And he was found wandering the streets in Manchester, and we got the call the next morning from him. Well, we had a voicemail saying, "Ryan, help me, help me. I don't know where I am." So we had to go all the way up to Manchester to pick him up, and the police had picked him up, and that's when our journey took a different turn. Like they took it out of our hands to take it forward with the police. So they contacted the Kent police. We brought Kev from Manchester all the way down to Kent where we was living, spoke to the police unofficially. No statement just made yet, as of yet, sorry. And then Kev had to go back up to London. I'd done my official statement 2 weeks before, not 2 weeks before, a couple of days before Kev was supposed to do his official statement. He dropped down dead at the age of 33 in Chelsea Westminster Hospital with a burst brain aneurysm. That was hard. You know, you don't expect to lose your brother at such a young age and it made it hard with the police because with Kev's statement alone, SD was looking at 10, 15 years minimum on just his, let alone my statement. And by then, the law had changed that they could use evidence from previous trials he'd been involved with. The worst sentence he ever got was a 2-year suspended sentence. I don't know the terms of what he was charged with or what, but they was building up a big case, and so I still went ahead with it. Went to the local court. Then it got adjourned to the Crown Court. Then a couple of weeks before that was due to go to court, SD dropped down dead as well. So it got no justice whatsoever.
How did that make you feel?
I went off the road, to be honest. I lost all hope. At this point, we'd just had my youngest daughter, and then I just lost hope in anything. I went off the rails. I had an affair that ruined my first marriage. I turned to drink drugs for a good few years, in and out of so many relationships, having one night stands, you name it, I was doing it. And then in 2017, or the end of 2016, sorry, my mum had enough. You know, I've been in and out of counselling and that, and nothing was working. So she managed to get a number of a mental health hospital, and she got me the appointment. And that's when I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And that's when I started turning my life around. I went into group therapy, met other people with the same disorder, learned about who I was and how I could change and things like that. And that's when I started putting everything on paper to write my book.
And what do you think you would say to your younger self now, knowing all the stuff that you do know?
Wow. Probably encourage my younger self to speak up sooner. That it wasn't his fault. He didn't ask for all this because years I thought I might have asked for things and things like, oh, I deserved everything I went through. So to make sure that my younger self knew that it wasn't my fault, I didn't ask for anything like that, and to speak up sooner. In hindsight, I wish I could have. We might have had a different result. You know, Kev might have been round to see some justice. SD might have got some justice before he passed away. But I have kind of just made the best of a bad situation to be the person I am now. Because I'm guessing that if I had done all them things sooner, I might not be the man I am right now, share my story to help others. So I look at it as a blessing on that respect, but I do encourage people to speak up as soon as they can.
So we do a lot of work with boys ourselves as part of the nonprofit that I. One of the things that I do say is people need to live lives, right? They need to go through stuff and they need to have things sort of happen to them. Obviously, in your scenario, that's quite an extreme thing to happen, but it really does make of the man a little bit, right? It does give you that courage, that shape, that strength, that story that's powerful enough to hopefully to help other people. So, what is it that you're sort of looking to do now? What's the next steps for Ryan in this space?
Um, just carry on sharing my story, you know, try and help out as many people, not even just men, anyone that goes through tough times in life, just to know that it doesn't matter how old you are, what you've been through, that you can turn everything into a positive future. But you just got to learn to not let go of the past, but to channel it in a way to say, right, okay, that's happened. There's nothing I can do about it, but I can do something about today, tomorrow, the next day, next week, next month, and so on and so. Do you know what I mean? You got to kind of stop letting it stop you living your life. You know, that's the big thing, because a lot of people do let it ruin the rest of their life, and it's not a healthy way.
Well, let's talk about that from a more practical point of view. Obviously, your mum said she's had enough. She got you into counselling. So, what were some of the things that really worked for you, and what are some of the things that maybe didn't work as well for you when you went on that journey?
All the doctors pummeling me with different medication to try and numb it, and then going to regular counselling. I found with that it was helpful to a degree, but then you get the end of the 10 or 12 week program, and then you're shoved back out into the real world without any structure or any proper understanding of who you are, because you've just opened up to this person. So you go back into the real world, you go back down the same avenues that you went before, then you go back and see a different counsellor, and you've got to start back at the beginning again. And that's no healthy way of doing it, because you're just reliving it without learning from it. Group therapy for me was the best thing. That feeling of not being alone in how I think or how I act and what I've been sort of through was a massive help. To know I wasn't alone, to be in a room that I felt like I actually belonged somewhere, in a weird way, but that kind of lit the fuel under my arse to say, this is your opportunity now. And plus, in my group therapy, I was the only male in that group, and that kind of resonated with me. I thought, okay, part of me thought, I love it. I'm in a room with all these women, but I thought, how the hell am I the only man here? Surely I can't be the only man around here who's willing to do something about this and wants to get the help. So that kind of fueled me to be the person I am as well today.
You mentioned counselling, and I sort of have had a few therapists on the podcast, and I'm I've gone through my own sort of journey with mental health, and I right at the very beginning, my partner said at the time, I want you to go and have therapy. I didn't feel that it was the right thing, mainly because of what you were saying, right? You're just sort of trudging through old stuff. And if you're doing that with a number of counselors, that obviously magnifies and sort of grows from there. Do you think that group therapy allows you to sort of work a little bit through those weeds with people, whether that's just the fact that they're in the same situation and they might say, I tried this, I tried that. What do you think is so powerful about group therapy?
You're building like a different family. So you're communicating when you're in class and you learn what, like you said, some person might have tried that way and it worked for them, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but it's another idea. And then when you're coming out of the group, because we created a WhatsApp group or connected on social media, so you had that person you can turn to 24/7. It's not as if you've got to wait another week to see the same counsellor again and build up everything and just for that hour. You're getting that release more often, and for me, that was so beneficial, and I really need it. And it kind of helped me focus, because I was getting out my anger and frustrations a lot sooner instead of just building up until the next appointment.
I find that really interesting. So, one thing that I've always sort of said is men are fixers, and we maybe sort of cheat a little bit as well. So, the lawnmower may have broken. So, they may go onto a forum and Google how to fix the lawnmower. They will then fix the lawnmower. They will then come back in. The wife will go, is the lawnmower fixed? And they'll go, yes, I fixed the lawnmower. So do you think that ability to sort of bounce things off people quickly is really beneficial for men in particular? You did mention you were the only man in there, but
Yeah, I personally I think so, because you're getting someone else's opinion who 100% understands you, or 99% understands you straight away. They haven't read it from a textbook. I'm not putting any counsellor, therapist, down here. But for me, I feel like the best people to help you are the ones who have lived through the same as you. They can understand you on a complete different level. So yeah, that for me, that was the best idiot guide, really. How to fix myself, or not fix myself, but understand myself a lot more and a lot better.
So you mentioned how you've turned this sort of scenario into a positive, and you now move forward and look at the future from that. Is counselling something that you still do? What do you do to sort of keep yourself centered?
I haven't been a counsellor for a while. I did go a couple of months ago just because I was struggling, and I was struggling at home with my new wife and my mum and that. Nothing against them, but because they didn't. Every time I spoke and that, they was taking what I was saying personally and that. So I needed an impartial person to vent to and what I was going through and that. So I did go back into counselling. But apart from that, I just keep myself busy all the time, just channeling all my energy into this and just something to focus on. That's what a lot of people need to focus on. So they're not getting distracted by all the negative stuff in their head or in their lives and things like that. And just surround yourself with the right people.
So do you think resilience is a really important part of mental health?
Definitely, definitely. You got to keep going. You can't just give up at the first thing you try and it failed, because not everything's going to be right for you. You just it's hard to say, but I've always had this feeling inside myself that I was here for a reason. I think this is it now, and we're all here for a reason. You just need to find it, but just don't give up at the first hurdle. You just got to pick yourself back up and just dust yourself down and just keep going, because it will happen. You will get to that point. You think, right, this works for me now, and I can do this, and it was worth the fight, the struggle.
So you've sort of done that. You've been through that fight. You've been through counselling. You've been through the school of drugs, which seems to be, well, it's, I will be fair, it's slightly changing the tide towards that, and sort of here's some drugs, go away kind of thing. Um, what is your view on that sort of? It's not really prevention, is it? It's like bandage. This sort of here's some drugs, go away. Like, what do you think the NHS and the UK need to do differently in regards to mental health?
Stop just thinking drugs are gonna solve people, because that just people. I found over the years, people think that the medication they're being put on is going to solve all their problems. It doesn't. It brings you to a level that you can deal with it a lot easier. So it's got to come hand in hand. It's got to be more accessible to counsellors, group therapy, support networks, and the right groups around. So it needs to be more with NHS. I know obviously the funding and things like that is shocking, and it's not going to happen for a long time. But it just needs to be a bigger support network for anyone suffering with mental health, that they can not book themselves into, but go along and just join in and just meet other people who feel like them and look at the world like them, so you're not alone. Instead of just giving them drugs and say, right, you're signed off work for so many weeks, come back when these prescriptions ended and we'll talk to you again. It feels like you're just a number then, and that doesn't help the system.
No, I don't think it does. I think there is a big shift that's slowly happening. I've seen a lot more sort of social prescribing. So the idea of going and doing something as part of the medication, and sort of removal from that one size fits all. I think that's really important. I think the irony is, like you say, there isn't that much funding, but if we can position these groups and we can signpost to these groups, and there is additional funding for those in other ways, that's a much more powerful way, in my opinion, especially for men. I think that idea of community, that idea of purpose, that idea of building resilience and doing it yourself is really quite desirable for a man, almost like that idea of I did it myself. Um, do you feel proud of what you've done and how you've overcome everything?
Yeah, I do now. It's taken a long time to get to that, but without sounding big headed or anything, but I know many people in my life couldn't have gone through everything I've done and still be the person I am now and still get up to go to work and be there to help other people. That I'm proud of that, and I feel fortunate. I'm lucky enough that I had my mum by my side all the way through them things, because she was going through her own hell, to be honest, and obviously still being there for me. So I'm lucky in that respects. So yeah, I am proud, I guess. Yeah,
What's sort of one thing around um, BPD that you would like people to know that they may not know?
that BPD isn't as bad as it sounds. When they say borderline personality disorder, a lot of people think, oh, a complete don't go anywhere near type illness. Like, they're psychotic, they're manipulative, they're this, they're that, and it's not. It's just we feel emotion more than anyone else. That's the thing. We've got triggers that we can't control, and we see things differently. Like, something small to someone else is going to be massive to me, and that's just the understanding that needs to be put out there more, that we are just human beings, just like everyone else, but we just need a little bit more TLC sometimes. Not just how can I say this? Not have our illness used against us all the time. That's the big one. When been in previous relationships, that people used to think, "Oh, we're using your mental illness as a way to get out of life and your reactions and things like that." And it's not. I've got this label, but it doesn't mean that I can get away with things, because I make mistakes like everyone else. So yeah, we just need a bit more understanding, I guess.
That it's manageable is probably the wrong word, but that idea that it doesn't define you, it just is a part of you, and it's like, yeah, you hear it and you think almost like the film Split with James McAvoy, where he's into like 80 different
Yeah,
people and going, which I imagine, again, along with a lot of these disabilities, there's a spectrum, right? It's somewhere on there as well, but it is quite a harsh term for maybe something that isn't too serious, shall we say?
mm,
So yeah, it's. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on it, and if you wanted to sort of share some more information. Like, do you think, is it quite a trauma led mental health, or is there people that can just sort of be born with it?
I'm led to believe that you can be born with it, but trauma emphasizes it a lot more. It is trauma based in a way that, especially when you're a child, and that it kind of ruins your perception of emotion, and that, so you kind of just heighten everything that comes your way. When you're happy, you'll bounce off the walls, but when you're sad, you're complete miserable, or when you're someone else is a little bit angry, you're really pissed off. Do you know what I mean? It's just 100% all the time, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, it's well, yeah. I mean, that is what it is. One of the statistics that I've sort of come across getting into this space and trying to get a bit more of an understanding of it is that the average male survivor of sexual assault takes over 20 years or 25 years to come forward. As a survivor who's come forward, what's your thoughts on that statement?
Statistic that needs to come down considerably. It needs to be, in an ideal world, straight away. Do you know what I mean? As soon as it happens. I think the more we talk about it, the more we share it, and more we make it understandable that these things happen, and hopefully other survivors will come forward a lot sooner. Yeah, I wish it never happened to me, and I wish it never happened to anyone else, but obviously we can't change it, and I don't think there's anything we can do to stop these things at the moment. But if the more we make people aware of it, then they'll hopefully be able to see signs a lot sooner and things like that.
Do you think that statistic maybe emphasizes the actual numbers of male victims? Because you look at the number of women coming forward, and that's increasing, and that's great to see. But do you think that there is more male victims than is accounted for simply based on that moving average of being so large?
Probably, I'd say so, yeah, because obviously it's still that old school stigma, isn't it? And without putting women down that, but when you hear women being through sexual abuse and that, they get supported, understood, and helped straight away. But for some reason, when it's a male survivor, they kind of question it straight away. They don't offer that full understanding or the exposure to that situation without going through everything else to see, or did he do something to ask for it, or did he actually happen, or was he abused when he was a child, or no, yeah, was he abused as a child and then he's done something else and someone's got him back? There's always been questions and if buts and whys when it comes to men, but for women, they seem to go straight, yep, she's been sexually abused, we'll help her, support her. And I'm not putting anyone down on that one, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah, I think that support has changed more in recent times, right? I think there was still a very big stigma for women of, again, same questions: were they asking for it? What were you wearing? Kind of thing. I mean, there's been a huge campaign towards that for sure. I do find it interesting when it's a male survivor who is a man when they were sexually assaulted. I think that's where there's a lot of stigma and there's a lot of questions. I think similar to you, where you come forward as an adult based on a childhood experience, again, there seems to be quite a lot of stigma. But thankfully, in that child based scenario where it's all done as in childhood, there seems to be no real difference. There is still that very much. This happened X amount of weeks ago. This is still a child. This is a child saying it, whether they're male or female. I think there is a little bit of hope there, but I think there is still a stigma when it comes from a big man. Like,
Yeah.
if you look at yourself, you're quite a grizzly bloke and like probably not the one that...
Thanks. I've just had a hard life, all right? Okay.
That was a compliment. That's
Oh,
the
right.
look I'm going for. That's the look every man wants. They want to be hardened. They want to look like they've
That's
done
not
what they've done.
that's not me. No, I'm a big softie. I really am, and I think that's down to my mum. She did kind of mother me more when she left him, and obviously even more when obviously she found out. But I've always been like a gentle giant. I've got obviously the other side that we all lose our temper, and sometimes I lose my temper over certain things. But yeah, but going back to what you said about when an adult speaks up about that, people used to say to me when I first obviously wrote my book out, people said, well, why didn't you do anything about it? Why didn't you fight him off? Why didn't you do this? What do they expect? Not every man is more to just that one time or how many times. There's a build up, there's manipulation, there's always other factors, but people don't take into consideration when it comes to a male survivor or victim.
For sure. I want to ask you quite a deep question now, and I'll use your terminology to try and soften it a little bit. But do you think traditional masculinity failed your sperm donor?
In what way?
Do you think, have you done any sort of further dive to him and his childhood and his sort of life, and sort of looking at where that behavior came from, or is it purely psychotic?
It's interesting. I'm a bit conflicted on this because when I spoke to the police when um, he got arrested for what he done, the things that we reported and that, he was said to the police that my granddad done the same to him, and which ruined my memories of my granddad because to me, my granddad was a really lovely, soft, gentle bloke. And the police said a lot of the perpetrators used that as an excuse to try and get a more softer, not softer sentence, but a bit more, understanding or a bit more, what's the word, compassion. And it's hard to know if anything like that did happen, but I know that he was a troubled person from a young age. I remember my uncle, his brother, saying that he was always getting in trouble as a kid. So I don't know. My nan kind of didn't help his mum because she used to make excuses for his behaviour, and even the things he done to my mum, my nan used to make excuses for it. So I wouldn't say he had a perfect childhood and that, but to say that he was abused, I'm still conflicted on that. I'll never know now.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. It wasn't necessarily the abuse side of things. There are a lot of sort of there are a lot of similarities to where certain generations were brought up, right? Not the sexual assault side of things, but that sort of
Yeah.
harder fist kind of thing, and that sort of traditional role as a father, if you will, and that's the extreme, right? That's where that sort of crossing the bounds in that from a legality point of view. Some may argue that beating a kid with a belt or smacking a kid is seen as in that now as well.
Mm.
But I just didn't know whether you felt like maybe he was trying to claw onto something, maybe make himself a bit more of a man. I think that for me is where I see a lot of violence that men commit that aren't naturally violent. So you sort
Mm.
of look at a picture of them and you go, he wouldn't say boo to a goose, but he's committed X amount of rapes or he's violently assaulted someone. It's that trying to be a man by holding on to traditional masculinity. That was sort of the question.
I'm guessing you just kind of lit a light bulb there. I'm guessing he was brought up obviously as a straight male and that, and I think he was probably a gay man, but trying to be a straight male as well, because obviously that was back in the 50s, 60s when he met my mum and things like that. So it was more of a taboo even being a gay man back then. So I guess it was a bravado that he was putting on to himself to prove to others that he wasn't a gay man and probably himself as well. And it just, I'm not trying to defend what he done or anything like that, but I just feel like perhaps that was the catalyst of it. He was a gay man but didn't know how to be a gay man. So he went to the other side more extreme to prove that I'm a straight man and things like that. But then I think near the end of his life, he was dating men. So that's all I can think of. If that's a reason for him being the way he was, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not trying to defend his actions in any way, shape, or form. I'm just trying to see whether there's more of a systematic sort of issue that needs to be. And yeah, I didn't know that, and maybe that's an interesting thought process for
Mm,
sure. I mean, it could well be, but I think that's what I'm seeing right now is that a lot of this violence towards women and other men is coming from men that are trying to grasp hold of something that isn't there anymore. I think is this idea of like I'm a man and like what is that? Hence the first question, right? But
mm.
like that seems to be where a lot of this violence, deaths of despair, suicide, all of these things that happen to men that are negative, all seem to stem from this more onto something that doesn't really exist anymore. And yeah, just wanted to get your
Yeah,
view on that.
that does make sense. I've done a couple of talks up a prison, and after I'd done my talk, they was all asking questions and that. They was telling me about their childhood, and they were saying that they turned to crime just as a way of feeling heard because obviously they wasn't feeling heard at home and that. And it kind of not felt sorry for them, but I can understand why they did. Obviously, they're there for a reason. They got to do their time and that. But if only they'd been heard as a younger person or had a better childhood or things like that, then they wouldn't be the person they are today in prison. So yeah, a lot of childhood has as you say, is a lot of explanation on how they are as a adult.
Yeah, I think the word trauma gets thrown around a lot these days, but trauma is basically just living, right? It's just what happens to your body as you go through it. Like you can have an acute trauma or a very serious trauma. And again, I'm a big advocate for living life. I don't think that we should be wrapping people in cotton wool, but yeah, it's then how you deal with that as you become an adult, and it's like learning those tools along the way for sure. Uh, Ryan, in the men's space, sort of as a whole, what do you like right now, and what do you want to see more of?
I'm noticing more men are talking about how they're feeling and things like that, which is great. You know, the amount of men I've connected to over LinkedIn and sharing stories and opportunities and collaborating, it's amazing. I just want that to continue, just more and more, and be treated the same as any other survivor victim. You know, we should all be 100% treated the same. You know, I've had women comment on my post before saying, "Oh, women have got it worse. Women have had it worse," and that. And I just don't want all this. Oh, well, I've had it worse, or I've had it this. You know, we should all be treated the same. You can't judge your trauma to someone else's and vice versa, because we all deal with things in a different way. You just need to be treated the same, and it'll make so much easier for other people.
Yeah, there is a. I really like the saying, if he went to Tenerife, he went. If I went to Tenerife, he went to 11 Reef. There seems to be a lot of that in this space as well. Is like, well, I've got it worse. Okay, like we've all got it bad.
Yeah,
There is actually a really nice saying, which is that if the world's problems were in a big pile, you'd be in a rush to get your own back. So that sort
I like
of
that.
yeah. So it's we can it's easy to say this is harder or that's harder because we're not in those shoes, right? And it's yeah, it's a difficult thing for sure. Ryan, thanks so much for sharing your story. Thanks so much for opening up about it. If people have liked what they've heard, they want to hear more, where is the best place to find you? And I will leave the final thoughts with yourself.
Firstly, thank you for having me, Lewis. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn, Ryan Harland. If you want to read my book, it's called Riding the Storm, and it's on Amazon. And I'm open to help and listen to anyone, to be honest, you know, giving them that space to feel heard and not judged and not ridiculed and not questioned. That's what we need.